Hiya! Welcome to this, my 87th episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, sifting my basket of media memories, and in this installment, titled Mozzie, the Treasure, I meet up with my friend Kirk Nybakken to talk about USA Network's 2009 series premiere of White Collar. As I break into a new binder, a bunch of significant episodes turn up in my classic collection, and the Mario Brothers movie was an absolute blast. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have it on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
Lots going on lately, out-of-town visitors, and oh, hell yeah, please check out episode 4 of VideoFuzzy, the soundtrack. I was very happy with how that one came together, dove way back in time to the murky late 80s origins of my music collection. As for this one...
And now, VideoFuzzy presents Fuzzy Feature.
As I cataloged USA shows like Monk and Psych for this set, I was very excited to see promos running for the series premiere of White Collar, which did indeed turn up on discs 1441 and 1442. Not because it's such a great show. The tensile strength of the engineering-grade tungsten carbide cabling required for the suspension of disbelief during the show staggered human ingenuity, starting with Matt Bomer's Neil Caffrey and his salon-conditioned hair, fresh from whatever chemistry he was conducting in his prison cell. You just go from there. Neil breaks out of maximum security prison, which is where we keep art forgers, I guess, by buying a prison guard uniform on Amazon with the warden's wife's American Express card, because a package from Amazon would be conveyed to his maximum security cell unopened or remarked upon. He only had a few months left on his sentence, but he clawed his way out because his lady love was pulling a runner. He swore up and down that wasn't the case, but from her perspective, she also only had a couple more months to wait as well, so how much of this show already makes no human sense? Tim DeKay is Peter Burke, the FBI guy who ran super talented art forger Nil to Earth before, ran him to Earth again, because Nil cut the shortest path to the airport and continued using the card, despite having leveraged a lot of clever getting out of the prison parking lot, hot wiring a groundskeeper's truck, buying a bright yellow jacket from a street vendor that made him look like a valet, and then leveraging that bit of subterfuge to steal a high-end fancy person's motor car. Well, Burke could actually use some help, because another high-end art forger, the Dutchman, is plotting something involved with either Canadian $100 notes or Spanish-language editions of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, because first there was a safe explosion, and then a collector of, I guess, not especially rare books and antiquities was handing off like hundreds of copies of them. Well, clever boots, they all have a parchment cover page of the right age to pass as the Spanish bearer bond, each with some artwork by Goya, which this master forger had already copied and then replaced the original that they'd be comparing the forgeries against. Nil agrees to help Agent Burke catch the Dutchman, but blows his cover immediately, and also, while in the presence of FBI operatives, meets up with former known associates like Willie Garson as Mozzie. Oh, that's after he moves into a high-rise townhouse operated by the world's lightest touch, Diane Carroll as the millionaire widow June, who, upon meeting Nil at the local Goodwill, is charmed utterly and gives him a room in her home and her late husband's entire wardrobe. Tungsten carbide cabling. Mozzie leads Nil to the print operation in a warehouse somehow, and Nil helps Peter get over his need for warrant by breaking into that warehouse where the Dutchman is frantically printing off copies of intricately detailed Spanish bearer bonds. Burke is required to pursue Nil because of his ankle monitor. Now he's got all the probable cause he needs on the Spanish bond case and the Canadian hundreds case and all the other cases because, oh wow, this show. It did, however, give me an absolute best excuse to reconnect with a dear friend of mine, longtime friend of past podcasts, Kirk Nybakken, who I believe may be responsible for the funniest thing ever said on this or any of my podcasts. In June of 2011, we were live commenting the third season premiere of White Collar.
Piece of the same painting that was in his apartment. If not him, then Mozzie or Alex.
Well, there's a way you can find out how the forensics team kept it. If it's from the 1930s, then you know it's not him.
You know what happened in the basement I don't know about?
No, the Diana Gallery. They go through private labs to authenticate work.
Just authenticate the out of it.
Why, this is fake! Fake? It was taken by Gil Caffrey in his upstairs apartment! I told you!
Holy God. Kirk, okay, amazing. First off, welcome to VideoFuzzy.
All right.
We just watched the pilot episode and a couple of follow-up episodes of White Collar. When these turned up in my collection, I just was remembering like how we would do this. When we were able to get together while I was working here in Minot, and we were, Friday nights, USA would have these ridiculous shows on. And we'd grab a pizza and we would watch this stuff.
This and Psych.
This, oh Lord, USA had some.
What were the other ones? There was some.
Monk. I thought we watched once in a while.
We watched some Monk,
and I know we watched Suits.
Suits, yes.
I'm not a lawyer, but I'm really good at it. But I'm just USA would have these written by I don't know what basement of writers they had. Just come up with like pretty people doing wacky things, and Neil Caffrey from the very, very beginning opening his eyes really wide and convincing everybody that he can consult the FBI. I don't know, I really don't. Oh, okay, sure. Okay.
Yeah, when you just when you sit down and analyze, when you follow along and see what like Neil Caffrey does. And
just the Prison Break, start there. They said, he got his hands on the warden's wife's American Express card and ordered a guard uniform online.
And in between the time his girlfriend came to visit him and he broke out, he grew this massive beard. So everybody would think that, Neil Caffrey's the guy with the beard.
He's that beard guy.
And then he shaved it. And then nobody recognized him.
There's this new guard walking around.
Yeah, we've worked here for 20 years with the same guys, and this guy shows up.
Yeah, the blocking, they had everybody kind of like facing away from him, but like the one guy who like opens the door for him to get out is like, it can't be this easy to get in and out of a Supermax prison.
It's the TJ Maxx prison. That reminds me of that scene from Idiocracy. I'm supposed to be getting out of prison right now. See, that guy's already sat on my head and everything. Oh, get out of here. You're in the wrong line.
Oh, Lord. The writing on the show. And here we put you in this terrible little monthly rental. But here's Diane Carroll. And you can live.
She has a $20 million apartment that happens to have an extra space you can stay in.
It's a guest room, but it's mostly storage
and
now.
she lets you stay there.
And
because you just met her at a pawn shop.
It was so nice of her, really. Just goddamn the lightest.
Because I meet a lot of people at pawn shops, and I got plenty of room.
We watched her let Peter Burke, the FBI guy, we watched her let him write in, and then Mozzie apparently just
some other guy. I'm a friend of Neil.
Oh, Neil, of course.
You can trust me. Sit alone in the dark in my house while I'm upstairs sleeping.
Damn. Billionaires are famously trusting. That's how they got to be billionaires, is they let people know and walk in from, my late husband was also a criminal, so it's all right. The most ridiculous setup, and then we watched them do the most ridiculous things. That Canadian heist that was going to be some kind of international incident.
That's still going.
That has to be
caught the people who stole the thread out of the Canadian dollar.
Just some blew up and
the Canadian 100
and it just blew up the security filaments all over the place. And it's like, where'd they get that? How did we make sure that the safe was going to explode, but also all of the evidence would blow up onto you? It's, I don't know, but somebody had an idea, and Matt Bomer's really pretty, so
it's like in that show, he can walk into any place he wants to, smile as long as he has his hat on and stuff.
And here's all these models.
And here it's working on us as an audience, too. He can do whatever he wants and we'll believe it.
Well, they do hire him for a reason. I guess if they had hired Willie Garza to be to be Neil Caffrey, I don't think it would have worked as well.
I don't think he would have got the date with the book lady.
Hallie Thorne. Holy Christ. Oh, wow. The stealth involved with the FBI going in to plant the bug in the first place. We're going to just knock stuff off.
Clunk around in here.
There's like this obvious... Well, the lights were off. off. The lights were off. And, she would have noticed if we had turned the lights on and then turned them back off again.
I'm still wondering how the bread truck arrived at the scene and nobody noticed it and pull up in it.
There's no...
Because all of a sudden he was there holding a pistol behind him.
Don't you move!
Where'd the bread truck come from? Nobody even heard that thing pull up.
Realize I describe this as engineering-grade tungsten carbide cabling that is required for the suspension of disbelief for this show. It staggers human imagination, but
that's what made the show fun. You sit there and rip it apart as you're watching it.
The one line that I had in it from when we watched, I think it was the third season premiere, we were watching the treasure that they were going to, this warehouse that he had, I guess they had determined that by the third season that he had it all right there in town with him. It blows up, and like one piece of the art that he was also forging, he saw him forging, blows up and lands at Peter's feet.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Mozzie, the treasure. It's a fake. It was painted by Neil Caffrey. It was upstairs. I swear to God, Kirk, that was the funniest thing ever said on my podcast, and I attribute that directly to you. It was beautiful, and the TJ Supermax prison. The inmates were looking up and noticing, hey, you're kind of
the guy goes,
different.
Hey, Neil, what are you doing? He's got a prison guard outfit on.
Hey, you used a conditioner on your hair.
Yeah,
it was all shiny and stuff.
I'm not going to say anything. But
that's weird, right? No. Yeah, it brought up a lot of memories. And watching this thing, I was just staring at the stuff that just made no sense at all.
Oh, it's even like, now that we know, or we watched it in years past, it's even funnier,
I just really want to appreciate the time, because holy God. This was some stuff, but it was so much. You'd get to the end of the week and you'd watch this ridiculous stuff, and it was piled up on our VCR. We'd just watch it and laugh.
That's hilarious.
The little story that they were going through season 1 were like that, he's trying to track down Kate or what, so, like every week we get like a little wider window on what could possibly be going on with that, but the Morse code that she was,
Morse code.
he'd never seen.
He goes, Neil, get your hand out of the way.
Neil, you're not looking at my hand.
I'm doing Morse code.
Where I'm telling you, bottle, and it's going to be the only thing in the apartment when I leave it there. And it's like, when you find it, I don't know, I guess you get out in 4 months, but I'm leaving now. I swear to God, this show, seriously.
I'm shaking my head.
It's just, but a lot of fun, and really, it felt like a great time to try to do this, because when that turned up, it was like, we
gotta go watch this.
Are you free to do this? Thank you very much for...
Oh, absolutely. That was awesome.
Like these crazy people show up in your home and walk some crazy, absolutely ridiculous nonsense. Who wrote this? Mozzie, the treasure. Thank you so much. Such a great night. Thank you, Kirk. And Mozzie, put down that Art Deco Degas before it blows up and flies out a window. Cross connection. Looking for Studio Murphy Under connections between Aaron Sorkin, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, Alan Ball's 6 Feet Under, and Brian Murphy Productions, identified as mystical centers of my media collection. White Collar's got primary leads Matt Bomer and Tim DeKay, character actor Willie Garson, who Kirk and I determined last time we got together to talk about White Collar just was not attractive enough to pull off the kinds of Jedi mind tricks that Matt Bomer could just by opening his eyes really wide when he said things. We should track from at least one female principal, and we've got Burke's wife, Elizabeth, played by Tiffany Tyson, and then we've got Nick's landlady, June, played by Diane Carroll, which I think gives us a great place to start. Matt Bomer was actually in American Horror Stories with Francis Conroy, so his connection to Ryan Murphy Productions and 6 Feet Under is just about as direct as it could be. me. Tim DeKay was in FBI's Most Wanted, actually, with Julian McMahon and Dylan McDermott, giving him very direct connections to Ryan Murphy Productions' American Horror Story and Nip Tuck as well. These two checking boxes right off. With character actor Willie Garson as Mozzie, I wanted to see how obscure I could get, so I found him in Chocolate News with David Alan Grier, who I remember seeing briefly with Steve Carell in The Patient. Excellent show, and of course, Michael Scott there gets me right to Rainn Wilson in 6 Feet Under. But there's an even more obscure connection I can dredge up in something called DAG from the year 2000, where Greer is a top Secret Service agent, makes a faux pas and gets transferred to Delta Burke's security detail. Burke, of course, appeared in Designing Women with Jean Smart, who has gone on to appear in, everything. But more to the point here, Delta Burke appeared in Boston Legal with William Shatner, James Spader, and Ed Begley Jr., also 6 Feet Under. Tiffany Tyson was in Saved by the Bell with Mario Lopez, who's in Nip Tuck, so a short step there. She was also in Just Shoot Me, which featured actors from Veronica Mars, Emperor's New Groove, Saving Grace, Boston Legal, Ugly Betty, Arrested Development, Blind Justice, and The Big Bang Theory, all of which are just a step or so removed from mystical centrality in my media collection. So I think I actually need to be keeping an eye on Just Shoot Me, actually. And Diane Carroll was in Dynasty with Joan Collins, who showed up as a witch named Bubbles McGee in the Apocalypse season of American Horror Story. So yeah, lots of mystical centrality realness and a lot of new connecting tissue identified through Just Shoot Me. I really wasn't expecting that at all. Good to know.
Diving into my classic collection.
In my classic VHS to DVD collection, this one covering discs 1426 to 1450, well, except for the road trip opportunity that it presented, it was otherwise hard to even narrow down a fuzzy feature because the sheer number of significant turning point episodes in the set of discs. One episode of FlashForward called Gimme Some Truth centered on a Senate hearing where the FBI's Mosaic team leaders were grilled for not having yet solved the mystery of the blackout, I guess. Once they do, it's going to be so disappointing. A few big reveals. By the end of the episode, Chairwoman Clementi, who was just flaying these investigators alive before the committee, was slotted to the line of succession for the presidency, which fit her own flash-forward predictions. Team lead Weddick confronts current President Segovia about funding for Project Mosaic. Short-timer Dimitri gets into a limo targeted by assassins, and Project Mosaic head Mark Bedford, Josephine as Mark Bedford, was forced to admit the reason his own flash-forward was so fuzzy was after months of sobriety, he was bombed out of his skull while at work and lost nearly 2 minutes worth of memories, which reveal threatened the project itself. In all reality, the unprecedented nature of the event, the whole world losing consciousness for 137 seconds and remembering things yet to come, called for a multi-pronged approach regardless. Senators complaining about resources for the planet's foremost information hub and dismissing mysterious crow die-offs in the midst of all the other global systemic failures seems arrogant at best and willfully stupid at worst. At best, you want to at least rule out a connection, not dismiss it out of hand while something even worse develops. The episode was high political drama in a situation in which most of the voices here would be desperate for both answers and reassurance. Looking back, this episode, the fifth in the series, was a bellwether for the rest. Sadly, the disconnect between the mind-bending, world-remaking tragedy as presented and the arch, mundane, and ridiculous responses outlined by the writers never got better, and in fact continued to spiral completely out of hand. I'll keep you posted. There were 2 significant episodes of Monk in this set. For sure, the show was in its final season, and they were doing a lot of callbacks, so the writers were stepping it up a little. One huge callback was a guest appearance by Biddy Schramm, Mr. Monk and Sharona, where Sharona, his assistant for the first 3 seasons of the show, returns to San Francisco to collect a huge settlement check from a country club for the wrongful death of her estranged uncle. Looking at photos of the scene, her former boss, Adrian Monk, isn't so sure it was an accident, and her huge settlement check now in jeopardy, Sharona is so uninterested in Monk's theories in that direction. The other one centered on Monk's 50th birthday. The team is called in to investigate a janitor in a wood chipper, just as the company he worked for is about to launch a groundbreaking dust-free vacuum cleaner. The patent is in some dispute, but it seems like the janitor had a hand in its development. Waters are muddied further when a suspicious poisoning targets another claimant. In the crosshairs himself, Monk must puzzle out the solution at his own surprise party, and before he becomes victim number 3. 2 fifth-season Criminal Minds turned up on disc 1430, and they both just awful. Really can't believe I was still watching and archiving this show. The first one, Hopeless, had a crew of construction workers targeting upper middle class families, gentrifying lower income neighborhoods. The crew would pretty much recreate the home visit from A Clockwork Orange, torturing and terrorizing the Richies, videotaping the entire encounter, and then drinking, hooting, and cheering during the playback later. The next one was worse. A woman would be abducted, raped, and then forced to bear the rapist's child before he would kill her. This is such primal disorder, but it's so on brand for this show. Hoodlums targeting fine, upstanding folks and young women, young mothers, young rape victims, really the most sympathetic characters imaginable. And oh, the world we live in! Hoodlums, serial rapists, construction workers! Absolutely zero filters on CBS Productions. Just crimey, crime. Scare old people, sell some home security systems. That's all we got going on with this show, seriously. Speaking of advertising, Mad Men unleashed massive plot twists in its third season. On disc 1449, The Gypsy and the Hobo, I've got Betty confronting Don about his double life, Dick Whitman and Don Draper. He tries to dismiss it as she's prying into his private business, but Betty is wondering how many wives he's got and which one she is. It's tense stuff. Mercy turned a corner when Michelle Trachtenberg, as baby nurse Chloe, spilled the beans to Nurse Veronica's brother Ryan that Ronnie's been having an affair. After Ronnie's been giving Mike such a hard time for him cheating on her while she was tending to wounded soldiers in Iraq, and here she'd been having an affair as well. And damn if every single member of her family had more sympathy for Mike when she came back and urged her to forgive and forget. How the worm has turned! Chloe is mortified by her blab, tries desperately to take it back and get Ryan to shush, but nope, that cat is out of the bag, it's on the stage, and it has grabbed the mic. Ronnie's whole thing with Doc Studley was getting hard to hide anyway. She does not work with stupid people. So now the main thing is for her to come clean to Mike, which news is softened a little by her announcement that they're trying to start a family. The whole Flanagan clan is all over that. Maybe this horribly Jersey nightmare of a work-life imbalance, love, marriage, and miscellany, and a family of wildly intrusive Irish Catholic inebriates can all strap in for another 18 episodes. We'll see how many of these I actually archived. This is not Grey's Anatomy, that's for damn sure. Actually, Grey's got hopelessly unprofessional often enough and does very little talking room. I watched a wonderfully chaotic 6th season episode called I Saw What I Saw, in which James Pickens Jr. as Dr. Weber works with the Grey Sloan staff and all the new transfers from Mercy West to get to the bottom of what happened in a mass casualty burn event. The jockeying for surgical priorities combined with the mistrust among staff and the chaos of the scene generally made for a difficult timeline to parse. In this case, there was more than enough unprofessionalism to go around. One person was singled out for responsibility in a patient's loss of life, but there was plenty of recrimination to follow through on, and in the end, staffers were clearly feeling that. Nope, they were not all gems, but in other finds on disc 1431 I found a couple episodes of 1980s era spooky called Tales from the Darkside, both from the 4th season of that series, recorded from the Sci-Fi Channel. I had the spirit photographer about a kooky old shutterbug who hung out in a haunted house and bothered the other residents, and the other, Barter, was a Beeblezorp-style 1950s era alien huckster sidles up to an episode of I Love Lucy, which had Wolfie trying to write a helpful household hints column for a harried housewife, and her husband, Nicky, a nightclub impresario, is working with her son, Little Nicky, who is learning how to play drums. If he practices enough, he can play a number with a band. Well, the practicing is driving his mom, Rolfie, right around the bend. How will she write her column with all that racket? Just then, an alien, Klatsu, shows up at her back door begging for some ammonia to drink. He drinks it down, toots steam from his ear, and in exchange offers something to open all the cabinetry at once, or to close it all at once, or a pause button that works on people. Wolfie leaps at the chance to shush her son, Little Nicky, for a moment so she can finish her helpful hints column. Klatsu gives her the Oppenstopp, and she uses it on her son. Instant peace and quiet. She gets ever so much done, except she can't get the resume play button to work. Her son is frozen at the drums. She and Nicky agree that this is terrible. Just then, Klatsu returns and says he'll fix it for her if he could take the boy with him for 3 years to carry his sample case. Rolfie and Nicky plot and scheme a 1950s sitcom, but Klatsu is holding all the cards, and ultimately they have no choice but to agree. The Bacardi 0, Klatsu 1. Nip Tuck had a couple of odd episodes, not too surprising. As the series continued, the storylines got more and more ridiculous. Matt committed armed robbery in Mime Mask. There was a teenager named Enigma who tattooed the whole back of his head with a demon face and scarred his face with the mark of the beast. His parents insisted he undo it. And Kimber announced that she wanted to launch a brand of sex toys, so Christian all but voluntold her that she could use a mold of his likeness for her dildos. Instead, she chose Mario Lopez's Dr. Mike Moy as her model, and for everything we understand about his character, this was going to be quite an entertaining product line and successful marketing strategy. I'm just enjoying this roller coaster on its way off the rails, over the wall, and out of the park. Other items, well, in the episode of Community that turned up, Donald Glover as Troy joined Greendale's football team, or helped make it happen at all in the first place, and I believe this may have been the first view we had of Greendale's human being mascot. Ugly Betty's fourth season opened with her struggling to make an impression as associate editor, and there was a fairly significant episode of Dollhouse that traced Sierra's intake. Looking forward to revisiting that one day. Oh, and then there was an episode of Glee that attempted a mashup between Cisco's The Thong Song and Lerner and Lowe's I Could Have Danced All Night, insightfully as mismatched as the personalities in the wedding being planned between Coach Tanaka and Emma Pillsbury. And really, as ridiculous as The Thong Song is, I mean, it just is. In the hands of Mr. Shu, it became a powerful love ballad. In the same way that the stilted, somewhat impersonal I Could Have Danced All Night became a declaration in the hands of Jayma Mays as Emma. The feelings that these two, Mr. Shu and Emma, have had for each other since the opening scenes of this show have been wrong and impossible, which made them inevitable, and Coach saw all he needed to. Murph is a true gift for pairing music to scene, and it shone in this episode for sure. Closing out significant turning points in episodic television, the inevitable scene we'd been building up to in the West Wing's final season, Kristen Chenoweth's discovery of Leo McGarry's death, occurred in the closing moments of Election Day Part 1, and I was watching it in real time. What follows is equally powerful writing and acting, because there's simply every single thing that these characters all needed to be reacting to and feeling in all of the worst possible time. And on Battlestar Galactica, we got a vision of reality that we are not often invited to explore. We watch a feisty little ragtag cabal of humans, sympathetic characters we've loved and thought we would come to know, become suicide bombers for a cause. Colonel Tide deploys militants into Cylon strongholds to cause what destruction is possible from his prison compound. We understand this message. This is our ongoing conflict, America's longest war. We know how suicide bombers have been deployed against heroes, patriots in our war on terror, and these episodes opening the third season of the show, humans as prisoners under Cylon Guard, we are watching the logic play out from the point of view of people for whom we have sympathy. I thought this was diabolically powerful storytelling. Damn it, Moore, forcing us to consider this point of view, one universally dismissed and condemned in our own media, from a sympathetic perspective. That was brilliantly subversive. Sci-fi at its very best, really. The writing on the show has always been next level, and this was a good illustration as to how. Well done. Closing out this section, with this set I broke into binder number 8. Revisiting this segment of history's most boring mysteries, this was the binder that for some reason held the last disc for binder number 7, disc 1449, waiting for me to finish cataloging that binder, slipping them one by one into their proper spaces, thereby opening the sleeve for that disc before breaking into binder number 8, holding discs 1450 through 1657. So at the current pace, I'll be working on this binder for another year and a half probably, and this project at least through 2030, so, well, I'm not likely to run out of stuff to watch anytime soon. As I opened binder number 7, I was wishing everyone a happy 2022, so that timeline more or less checks out. I was still recording VideoFuzzy the video entries, and as I opened that one, I had just tracked through all of my James Bond theme songs. I ran into shows like Blind Justice and Drop Dead Diva. I was running into more discs with episodes of both Studio 60 and 6 Feet Under on them. The Lincoln Meyer episode of Boston Legal turned up, including episodes actually featuring Delta Burke, so that was fun. This binder held the physical midpoint of my DVD collection, disc 1285. That was marked perfectly perfectly by a photo taken of me and the joy on my face as Julia came running back into the waiting room of an abortion clinic, unwilling to terminate her pregnancy. Truly a nip-tuck Christmas miracle. So that was pretty cool, actually. In other highlights, along with Studio 60 and 6 Feet Under, I added Ryan Murphy Productions, the third mystical center of my media collection. Episodes of Glee started showing up. I quite coincidentally discovered a Minot Arts in the Park presentation of Minot Area Theatrical Society's 2005 production of Romeo and Juliet at the same time I was making my Bismarck stage debut in Capital Shakespeare's Merry Wives of Windsor. Episodes of Community and FlashForward started showing up in my collection. I found The Lost Room, a classic sci-fi favorite of mine, Dresden Files, Dirt, Star Trek Enterprise, and the musical episode of Scrubs, all excellent semi-recent discoveries. Oh, and last June I marked the 5th anniversary of this podcast with a conversation in episode 82 with Austin Titchener, based on his appearance in the Jim Leonard production of Close to Home that turned up discs 1259 and 1260, but who also represents direct ties in my media collection to The West Wing and Nip Tuck. Undying gratitude for your time, your comments, and your insights, sir. Yep. Binder number 7 will be tough to top, but I do know I've got some absolutely fantastic series, shows, and standouts yet to come, and as they turn up in this cataloging project here, we shall discover them together. Onward.
Checking out my current collection.
In my current collection of direct-to-digital recordings, I only archived the one disc this time, disc X482, but it was significant. On the CW, Kung Fu built to a marvelous close. In the third season finale, the ancient witch, Shao, had taken over the resurrected body of Pai Li, Nikki Shifu, and trapped her spirit in a cage inside her mind. This took enormous energy. Fortunately, she'd stolen the souls of the bloodline and was harnessing them to exert mind control over a whole bunch of people at the security firm. She controlled legions of armed puppets, which she used to target Nikki's family. Nikki's tech prodigy sister, Althea, accepted the offer from FBI on condition that she could help Nikki fight Chao, and they handed off sufficient computing power to make that possible. Althea redirected satellites that were helping Chao exert her mind control, and as Bo helped Pai Li free herself from the mind cage, Nikki could confront her directly. Chao was weakened by trying to exert too much control over too many people. Even with the spiritual energy she'd stolen from the warrior bloodline, she was losing power. Nikki was able to kill Shao and free the souls of the bloodline. In the closing scenes of the show, her family was happy and at peace, and Nikki was traveling the world, using her craft to do good deeds and help those in need. This could and should be a series finale, but I'm not holding out much hope. The showrunners have no real sense of scope. Series finale Big Bad Wise, they've equated an underground Chinatown street gang with a powerful business tycoon's apocalyptic ambitions with a private security firm taken over by an all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful ancient witch. All of the stories have been all over the place, and they should really close this series on the high, not to mention the iconic note they managed with their closing shot. AMC started airing Lucky Hank, which is fine. Bob Odenkirk plays a mediocre writer, sufficiently self-aware to know that he has found his level. He chairs the lit department, which is every bit of inter-office politics I've ever witnessed or suspected in a college department setting. Despite knowing that every moment of every day is suffused with inter-office politics, he says out loud to a student in his writing class that student, by his presence at Railton, is not a high achiever. The college is a mediocre academic environment at best. And that observation gets in the school newspaper, and the student throws a fit, demanding to be respected, despite having turned in a handful of hopelessly disorganized logorrhea, which at first Hank was going to generously not discuss, and then gloss over mildly, but then went into toweringly cruel, if accurate, detail about how terrible it truly was. He has frantic muttering meetings with deans and presidents, and he's voted out as chair. It could affect his tenure. Oh, except the thing happens I fully anticipated, that faculty voted him back in, because who else wants this crummy gig? Oh, Hank, how lucky. And since I've still got Netflix, I threw on an episode of Kunk on Earth, which the show, as described to me, is actually nowhere near as funny as it ultimately is, so I'm really glad that I did. You got Diane Morgan as Philomena Kunk, who is as blunt an instrument as is possible to imagine in parsing the whys and wherefores of ancient civilization. She explores cave paintings, the origins of the wheel and of law, and the questions of roads, aqueducts, and anal bleaching in ancient Rome. She's about to have a go at the flowers now. Next up for me is Kunk on Religion. Oh, this should be good.
what I've been watching.
Ralph once again stood me to a movie I might not have gone to myself, and once again I enjoyed it. The Super Mario Brothers, Chris Pratt and Felicia Day. Doris Day. Charlie Day, who I notice even as a title character gets lower billing than Anya Peach. Well, technically, Adewale Akinwumi Abaji plays a title character in Suicide Squad, but I think Crocodile Man is on screen for maybe 8 minutes, and one is not surprised to find him billed beneath Margot Robbie and Slappy McGee. Mario and Luigi are plumbers in Brooklyn, and they have this outrageous accent for a commercial they air at the beginning of the movie. Chris Pratt as Mario asks, "Is it too much?" And random Brooklynite Italiano assures him, "Too much? It's perfect!" Their family is less on board with the commercial or the accent, mainly because the brothers are trying to make their own way as independent contractors rather than employees of Spike, voiced by, you know what? I know it's Sebastian Maniscalco, but damn if I wasn't just hearing Jason Mantzoukas in that role, just willing it to be him, and then Mario and Luigi could play in this world and he could be the big bad. Instead, we got wacky underground sewer lines porting our plumbers to mystical realms like the Mushroom Kingdom, run by Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach, and the Dark Realm, run by Jack Black as Bowser, and various Koopa troopers as his palace guards, though the Koopas are pretty cool. I like them. I especially like Peter Lorre as comic. Kevin Michael Richardson is the voice of the Wizard Cooper comic. The Cybus Glaive of the whole thing. And of course, the Monkey Kingdom, run by Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong and Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, who is just so freaking much fun. Mario and Peach got some help from Keegan-Michael Key as Toad in searching for Luigi, who got lost in the Dark Realm and tortured by Bowser for information about Mario before just endungeoning him among the vanquished, including various captured penguins and the Penguin King, and a dark little nightlight called Lumalee, whose kawaii little voice coos longingly for the sweet embrace of death. For a little star creature, he's pretty friggin' dark. Stars are the thing, though, because Bowser's captured one, making him all-powerful, and with this limitless power, he wants to marry Princess Peach. Peach isn't having any of this, and there's a standoff and a showdown that somehow spills back into our world some, and then you get Bowser et al. Committing mayhem all over New York, and yeah, wouldn't be much of a Super Mario movie if there wasn't a day that got saved, but since the how of that is never certain, I'm gonna let you watch it yourself, because it's fun and worth it, and you totally should. There's a scene in the Monkey Kingdom where they grabbed Take On Me by Aha, and that scene should really have used Cars by Gary Newman. It takes you right out of the action. Take On Me has been used so perfectly in so many things, it just really stands out how poorly it plays here. Great song, wrong friggin' place, guys. And I want a whole movie where Jason Mantzoukas as Spike and gets sucked into an undersea world and plays their former boss, and he's the big bad, and it's hilarious. Make that movie, Nintendo. Finally, speaking of surreal anthropomorphic worlds, I realize that my Netflix subscription also lets me watch the final 3 seasons of BoJack Horseman that Comedy Central never ran, so I'll be checking those out after quick re-watching season 3 to get up to speed. Damn, this show is fun. And dark. It's a fun, if incredibly dark show, and I'm loving it. And with that, I really should get this in the feed. Thanks again to Kirk Nybakken for his company and his kind hospitality, and thank you all so much for checking in my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com, and for past episodes, add, subscribe, or follow VideoFuzzy over there we get a podcast. If you get a chance, check out my VideoFuzzy soundtrack entries as well. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites via email to tjom1970@yahoo.com, through my VideoFuzzy pages on Facebook and Instagram. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find it together on VideoFuzzy.